Fully Cooley is what I commonly think of as my favorite anime of all time. I can't even count the amount of times I've watched this shit on my hands. I've watched it enough times that I could have caught up to Sazai-san at this point. I've watched it more times than I've watched The Office, and that's honestly saying something. I really have a problem. So it's safe to say I was skeptical about the announcement that Production IG would be releasing Fully Cooley Progressive and Alternative. And, spoiler alert, my skepticism was mostly confirmed. All three of these series are essentially coming-of-age stories, but aside from teen angst, the pillows, and a flanderization of Haruka Harahara, Fully Cooley Alternative can barely be compared to the original at all. Now, I thought Progressive was alright watching it weekly, and I enjoyed it significantly more when I rewatched it all the way through, but there's just so much missing from both series. Firstly, nothing fucking happens in either Progressive or Alternative until the ending, and I'm completely fine with the lack of plot as long as the show is still fun. Progressive was at least a little fun even though nothing was going on. I genuinely enjoyed episode 4 of Alternative because it was just a fun time, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that every episode of both series felt like a third of the content of an episode of the original. Not only was there a significant lack of content, but it also seemed to struggle to understand the nuances of the original series and ended up repeating terms and iconography in a manner that looked like it was ripping itself off. For instance, in the original Fully Cooley, Haruka refers to Naota's guitar as his bat, because his older brother was a baseball player and he was clearly dependent on him. Now, in his brother's absence, it's up to Naota to take the action for himself, to save the town, to swing his own bat. Naota had consistently lived in the shadow of his older brother, literally sleeping under the stuff his brother had left behind, and Fully Cooleying with his brother's ex-girlfriend. He couldn't grow up until he escaped his brother's shadow. Nothing could happen until he swung the bat. In Progressive, they just call it a bat because that's what they called it in the original. These characters have no attachment to baseball. Also, Progressive tried to do the whole manga scene, but it really just couldn't even compare. I've always hated when people would use phrases like, Dark Souls 2 is a good game, just not a good Dark Souls game. Or Season 4 of Community is a good season of TV, just not a good season of Community. And I think Fully Cooley's sequels are a perfect example of why this sentiment fails to deliver. Both Progressive and Alternative are completely serviceable anime on their own, and probably worth your time to experience since they're only 6 episodes each, and if Production IG had pitched these as completely new series with soundtracks from the Pillows, my opinions of these shows would probably be completely different. But while they may be fine shows on their own, they fail to even slightly capture the spirit, energy, heart, or quality of the series they're supposed to represent, and if they can't even succeed at being themselves, I wouldn't consider them to be good shows. Fully Cooley, Progressive, and Alternative are the Star Wars sequel trilogy of anime, designed purely to profit off of the love and nostalgia fans had of the original, because style is easy to replicate, but substance takes a lot more hard work.
They're fake.
So yeah, I was pretty disappointed by Alternative and Progressive, and it felt like all hope was lost for a true spiritual successor to Fully Cooley. I felt like I would never see anything ever again that would deliver such an energetic, heartwarming, stylish, and thematically compact package. That was until... I can't express how captivated I was by Gridman. I remember this being announced around the same time as Premiere, which is a whole other video on its own, and I was way more excited for that. Being the Imaishi fanboy that I am, and Gallo looking like a Kamina clone in the promotional material, I was ready to write Gridman off as something I was passively interested in, which is honestly an attitude I really need to get away from. I didn't watch it immediately. It took me until around 4 weeks in to give it a shot, and my god, I was not prepared for what I was about to see. I was instantly hooked. The characters, the music, the atmosphere, it all immediately drew me in. I felt so nostalgic yet so new at the same time. The animation was flashy and had all the dumb trigger energy you'd expect with the same level of angst and thematically rich storytelling you'd find in a Golden Age Gainax production. Not only was it a genuinely exciting and intriguing story, but it also took the waifu wars to the next level. Gone is the era of tits versus ass. Gone is the era of pink hair versus blue hair. It's the future, motherfucker. Are you a thigh man or a foot man? Leave your answers in the comments below. For those uninitiated, Gridman is a classic tokusatsu series, and Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad Gridman, or Special Signature to Save a Soul, take your pick, is an anime adaptation created by Studio Trigger. The story follows Yuta, a high school student with amnesia who discovers the existence of Gridman in his classmate's old computer and must team up with him to fight the kaiju that threaten his town, only to discover that the morning after a kaiju attack, the town is restored to its previous condition, yet the people who were killed are erased from the memories of everyone but the Gridman squad. It follows a mostly Monster of the Week format with some ongoing character arcs that feel really special, and some that feel really familiar. Throughout the story, I felt myself really growing attached to these characters, Akane and Anti especially. Every episode drew me in with its style and heart. The action scenes were insanely hype and filled to the brim with energetic animation and pure Sakuga. The character dynamics were always entertaining, and by the end I was really rooting for every character, even the villains. The story of Akane was really special to me. The revelation that the entire town and its inhabitants were all figments of her imagination, and the kaiju attacks were her way of eliminating the aspects that she no longer liked in order to create the perfect world for her to escape to, was honestly pretty relatable. Ever since Recreators, I've really liked the idea that storytellers are essentially the gods of the worlds they create, and as someone who has really struggled with loneliness and isolation and many times in my life, I could really relate to Akane's desire to create a perfect world just for her. Gridman's ultimate goal wasn't to take Akane down and rid the town of her. His goal was to save her, and give her the hope that she needs so she might not need the town anymore. From the last shot of the series, you can pretty clearly interpret that Rika is a mirror image of the real Akane, making their conversation in the last episode that much more heartwarming. Essentially, Akane is having a conversation with herself about her desire for self-love. It's also pretty clear that Yuta is a representation of a real boy in her class that she has feelings for. So, in her perfect world, she gave herself features that she thought he'd desire. Colorful hair, a large chest, and a thinner body. She placed herself next to Yuta and made everyone in her class admire her so he'd notice. But even then, Yuta had eyes for someone else. He had eyes for Rika, the real Akane. She doesn't need to change in order to obtain the acceptance of others. She just needs to be herself. So many aspects of the series reminded me of why I loved Fooly Cooly. Both have pretty angsty characters in a coming-of-age story that can be pretty wild and off the rails on the surface, but can provide so much thematic depth if you give it the thought it deserves. I would add that if you're a big fan of Gurren Lagann, or any of Hiroyuki Imaishi's works, then this will feel really at home for you too. The director, Akira Amemiya, has worked closely with Imaishi in the past on Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill, and you can really feel the influence Imaishi has on his style, while still bringing plenty of his own original flair. I don't really like using comparison as critique, but in this case it really fits. This was it. The animation, the characters, the atmosphere, the hype, the heart. This was what I had waited so many years for. This was the real Fooly Cooly alternative.